Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. I think you know that. Mitch behind the cameras. We're back in the shop. We're going to do an episode on the giraffe bike. What is a giraffe bike? They were made in London, I'm told, in 1894 approximately. And it had a high bottom bracket, so you were up a lot higher. Back in London in 1894, it was cool to have a hedge. You had a little bit of privacy, and when you rode a giraffe bike, because you were up, you could look over people's hedges. So in fact, it was the original peeping Tom bicycle. Strange enough. So I have a book. It's called Bicycles and Tricycles. You can see how long I've had it. Look, it's falling apart. And if you go to page 159, that's where I discovered a giraffe bike. I just like the looks of it. There was something about it. It and the Whippet. I made these two bikes. First, I made the Whippet, and that was a bit of a hit. And I was teaching Frame Building 101 at this time at the University of the Fraser Valley, and we got into a situation where each year in early in the year, March, we would go down to NABS, the university and I, and I got into the habit of, for a few consecutive years, making a show bike every year to take down to NABS to get some attention, promote the school. It was a fun time. I made the Whippet, and then when I decided to make the giraffe bike, I took all the parts off the Whippet, and I made the giraffe bike. That means that I could only have one bike at a time, in a sense, because I had the two frames, but the parts got swapped. So apparently there's a bicycle show next year, and I'm entered in it. It's not confirmed or anything, but I need to have all the bikes. So I've got the Whippet up here, and we're going to finish off the giraffe bike. So in my book of serial numbers, it's number 4264 in the series of bikes, and it was made in February of 2014. So that's when we went down to NAB. So after saying all that, thanks for tuning in. Let's go over, have a look at the bike, and I'll show you what we got so far. Here's the frame. You can see a very long head tube. It's got a spoon brake. See this? Put a little return spring. Acetylene lamp. I got that off eBay way back in 2014, I guess that would have been. I got the fenders. The fenders were made in Oregon. There's a guy called Cody there, and I got his card, and he calls himself a master woodworker. And he made the fenders, and he did a beautiful job. We talked about the shape, it's the radius, and the width, and the radius of the wheel. We talked about the finish, the color, a satin finish, and he nailed everything. And I said, that's great. I said, I'm going to get you to make me some hand grips. And he said, oh no, I don't do that. And so he calls himself a master woodworker, but maybe he knows how to make hand grips, but he just doesn't want to. So on the hand grips, I got to thank Tim. He's a friend, and he made these locally. So they're going to fit on here, like that. And I was at a swap meet, and I found an old saddle. And it didn't look like this. I did a lot of polishing, and then I got it nickel plated. So now I have to get the actual seat made. That goes in there like that. I have to make a seat post. Don't have a seat post. It's got to look old. I got to make the hubs. I've got a chain for it. It's a skip tooth chain. Can you see how the sprocket, it's missing a tooth here? And if you look at the chain, can you see how these two rollers are closer than these rollers here, so it's uneven. And I got the chain off eBay way back when I started building the Whippet, because I thought that's what I would use. And then I found out that on the Whippet it's actually a block chain, so I still had the chain. And when I started back on this, I thought I could use the chain. So I looked it up in the book, in the bicycles and tricycles book, and I found on page, I think it's 401, there's a picture of a chain back in those days, and the book was written in 1896, so it's an old copy. And they had a chain like this, so I think it's entirely plausible to use a chain like this. Then I went on eBay and I found the sprocket. This is actually off a Schwinn, probably from the 40s and the 50s, so it's not real correct, but I like the hearts. The hearts look really nice, so I thought I'd do that. And then I also got, off eBay, I got the rear sprocket. I'm going to have to mount this on a little freewheel, like a BMX freewheel. They're really small, and I'm going to see how that works. But one of the things I got to see right now is if the combination of the sprockets is going to work for the length of the chainstays. So I've got a piece of cardboard here. We're going to look at this right now and see if it's going to work. If I take my ruler and I measure from the back of the axle, it's a slot, so the wheel can go forward. And if I look from the back of the slot, 445 millimeters. So I've got a piece of cardboard here. That's the most it can be. It can be a little smaller, and if it doesn't work out, I got to get different sprockets, because the sprockets have an effect. I like doing this kind of stuff. You got to figure it out. So if I take out a link, what I do is I move it up. There we go. I've taken out a link right there. Not physically, but you know, I'm still too long here. That might be a little short. Okay, we'll do one less. Look, I got the centers right in the middle of the sprocket, so that's going to work. That's good. I was at a swap meet in the fall, and I bought some rims there. They were in good shape. I can't remember what kind they were, so I sanded them all down. I painted them black. That was last September, I believe. This is what I wanted to show you. This is, if I'm painting a rim, this is what I do. I've got a keychain here. See that? There's the keychain. It holds the safety wire. And then I've got a metal ring that holds it in the middle. I do 4. And after I do the wire up, I coil it round itself. Then I take a pair of needle nose pliers and I put, see all the little kinks? It makes it tight. It puts tension into this. So a little trick for painting, and then I can hang it by the hook in the spray booth. And then when I'm painting, I can spray around like that. I have some photos here, photos of the hubs. I looked in the book because this is from the period of the time. So I've got more hubs here. This is a cross section, so I'm going to be building a hub more or less like this, except I'll have a ball bearing, a sealed ball bearing on either side. So I'm going to make it out of bronze. And here's the piece of bronze I got. We can put this in the lathe and just take off a skim. This is, I think it's a 2-inch OD, 4.5 inches long. $84. That's the price of bronze these days, but it's going to be a nice hub. I could use brass, but bronze is just classier and it's stronger. So let's go over to the lathe and we'll just take a cut and you can look at how it machines. I'll drill a center hole and then we'll take a skim. From here to here is about 100 millimeters or 4 inches. When I ordered this, the hub is 100 millimeters, maybe a little less. I ordered an extra ½ inch. I asked for 4½ inches because when you build something like this, you need to be able to hold on to something. That's the extra ½ inch, and so that'll just go into my wastebasket somewhere. Be a nice disc of bronze. I'll have to make an old drawing of an old hub in these situations. So I got a center line. We'll draw a couple center lines here. If I'm going to make something, I'll make a rough sketch often. It just has some dimensions on it and things like that. And it helps. And sometimes when I'm making something, I might change the spec right halfway through the job. I can do that. I like that. So this is the outside of the hub here. And then we need 100 millimeters, a little less than 100 millimeters. So we got 48 there, and 48 there, so 96 about. We're going to come in 9/16 just to be arbitrary. So this is the flange. I'll mark it with a felt pen in a little bit, then you'll have a much better idea. I know you can't see very well. That's what I see when I look at that piece of bronze. I see that shape. We're going to make that shape, not this episode, probably next episode. Make that out of bronze. I'll buy some bearings, I'll get some nuts and bolts, stainless fasteners. That's the plan. Thanks for watching. Mitch and I like coffee. If you buy some coffee, we really appreciate that. Please like, share, subscribe. Happy holidays. Take care. Be really hard to ride. Look how close the handlebars are to the seat. There's no reach there at all. I think people back then were a lot smaller. They certainly weren't 6 feet tall usually. Very small people.